What happens instead of being in a wilderness, you find yourself in a spot like this, where you're at home and you need to stay there? It's what we typically refer to as bugging in, meaning some sort of survival or disaster readiness type situation has happened. And instead of leaving or being gone somewhere, you actually have to stay in your home. Sounds familiar to our current times, doesn't it? So the pandemic of 2020 is a perfect example of that type of situation where you need to have all the supplies that you may need in your home. Therefore, when all the rush starts happening and people start going to the grocery stores and hoarding stuff and grabbing stuff and getting in arguments and fighting, you've got everything taken care of. So let's talk about the most important things that we need to be considering for bugging in. The most important topic as it relates to bugging in is hygiene and keeping yourself clean. Again, with our current situation of the pandemic of 2020, that's not been a major problem, simply because we still have electric and we still have water. So what I want to do is break this down into a short-term look at hygiene and a long-term look at hygiene as well. One of the best things to have and keep on hand in a short-term situation are some sort of wipes. Obviously, you have wipes for a baby if you have a baby, but you can get wipes that are sanitation wipes, just body wipes that you can utilize on a daily basis too. Think about it. If you don't have any water, something such as a wipe is really going to keep body odor down and help you stay as clean as you possibly can without a whole lot of water need. Secondly, and everybody I think really understands this now, we've been talking about this for years, is the need to have masks. Depending upon what the situation is and what is out there, whether it's a biological contaminant that's in the air or there's a virus like there is now, whether there's a lot of particles in the air due to fires or something of that nature, masks are an invaluable resource to have in your kit. So if you don't have those, I'm sure you probably have already fixed that now, but at least go ahead and find some as soon as they are available so that you have them for the future. Again, there's a multiple number of situations that could occur where you could use a mask. Think about 9/11 and all the debris that was in the air there. Those are all situations where a mask became very, very important and a functional piece of equipment to have. Now, hand sanitizer is another one that I think everybody understands the importance of now. This actually is one of 3 bottles of hand sanitizer that we set aside several years ago for just such a situation. So this is one of those things, when hand sanitizer becomes available, you should go ahead and stock some as best you can. Again, hoarding is not the best way to do this in the middle of a pandemic or in the middle of a disaster. It's better to go ahead and get supplies before you need them so that you have them at the ready when you do. Now, a long-term situation is going to require some bleach. And when I say a long-term situation, what I'm referring to is a situation where you don't have any access to water or electricity. You've got water. We've talked about water in a number of ways. We'll talk about it some more in just a moment. But you have to have something that's going to clean a large amount of water. The filters and the purifiers that we talked about in the water section are there for you when you're out on the go, when you've got to get a little bit of water here from a stream or a pond or what have you. But here where you're bugging in, where you're going to need excessive amounts of water, you're going to need some bleach. And when you get bleach, it's very important you get a certain kind. You want to get pure bleach. Concentrated is even better. Don't get scented bleach because that is a problem. So here are some quick recommendations for you. If you're going to make water that's going to be utilized for drinking, you want to utilize 1 to 2 drops of bleach in a quart of water. So if you have a water bottle, that's all you're going to need. And do not think that more is better. If you use more than a couple of drops, you're going to start having problems with organ failure. If you want to utilize bleach in a 5-gallon bucket of water, for example, then you're going to use 1 teaspoon of bleach for every 5 gallons of water. That's going to be plenty to purify anything that's in that particular bucket of water. Now, the simplest way to make a good disinfectant solution is to utilize 1/3 cup of bleach in a gallon of water. Then if you have spray bottles, you can put in a spray bottle, spray down surfaces, spray down your hands, spray down plates, whatever it is that you think is unhygienic, and that'll help clean any bacterial contaminants that are on those surfaces. Now, The key here is to make sure that you at least let that air dry. If you have stores of water that you can utilize to rinse, then yeah, you can utilize that for rinse. But at the very least, you want to make sure that bleach has an opportunity to dry so that you don't ingest any of that bleach. Now, the next thing that we need to take a look at that's very important is hygiene as it relates to toilet use. So what we're going to do is we're going to go inside the house, talk about a few things, and then we're also going to show you how to build a latrine in your backyard to keep it as hygienic as possible. The most important thing for a toilet use to help you stay hygienic is to leave the lid down when it's not in use, especially when you flush. Whenever you flush a commode or a toilet, a lot of small particles get into the air and it's easy for you to breathe those in, and that can cause a problem. Again, that's daily life. Now, as far as a pandemic or a situation where we're bugging in, you do not have to have water supply into your home to be able to utilize water in the back of the toilet. If you have access to water outside your home, even if it's pond water or you've collected water on a guttering system, you can use a bucket, fill up the back of your toilet, and everything's still going to flush. So even if the water supply is down, electric's down, then just realize you can put water in here and still flush your toilet. Now let's talk about 3 different things that you can do in a backyard so that you can get rid of human waste and be as hygienic as possible in a long-term situation. First off, dig a hole. Dig a hole that's about 8 inches deep minimum. Put your human waste into it and then cover it up. When you cover it up, make sure you throw in some grass or some weeds or something of that nature. That's going to help decompose the material that's in the hole. And make sure you get it covered so nobody steps onto it again. Once you step on it, it's just like dog poo. You're going to get that feces on your feet or on your shoes, and you're going to carry that around. That's going to be very unhygienic. If you don't have a backyard, you don't have the ability to dig a hole, then make sure you have a bucket on hand. And you can utilize this as a makeshift toilet. And what you can do is you can take something like this, have a top for it that you cover. They could be a plastic bag or the top that comes with it. And every time you use the bathroom in this, when I say use the bathroom, I mean number 2, you're going to put some kitty litter in there. You're going to put some soil in there, some grass, weeds, or something that you can put in there. Pelletized lime is a good choice too. Again, that helps break down the feces that are in the bucket. And last but not least, in a long-term situation, you can use grocery bags, where you literally do your number 2 in the bag and you immediately tie it off and then take it outside your home. The goal in all of this is to take human waste and remove it from inside the house, because you have to stay inside there. Anytime that you can remove the waste from the house, you're going to make your house much more hygienic, and you're going to be safer, and you're going to be more healthy.
Hey, radios is a really important topic because oftentimes your cell phones might go down. Now, one of the things that's really important to know in modern times is most first responders utilize cell phones quite a bit too. So cell phone towers in disaster readiness are going to be one of the first things they try to get up. We've trained and had the good fortune of training a lot of federal law enforcement officers and first responders. And that's one of the things they always wanted to let us know is that one thing you can do is, number 1, have battery backup for your cell phone, and then have a backup communication device like a radio, handheld radio. This happens to be a ham radio. I'm a big fan of ham radio licensing and getting a good functional ham radio. Here's why. A few years ago, there were some significant fires down in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and the thing that saved the day, literally in some areas, were ham radio operators who could still communicate and were able to direct fire personnel even to areas where the fire personnel did not have radio communication. So ham radios are something you'll have to invest some time, energy, and a little bit of money into to study how to utilize these. Well worth the investment of all of those. But at the very least, get some 2-way handheld radios that you can get in any department store, any sporting goods store, something of that nature, so that if you have to leave one another in your party, your family, whoever, you have that communication device. You know, in that last portion, when we were talking about communication devices, we talked about backup battery sources and personal devices, obviously. But here is something that I think is a functional piece of equipment that everybody should have, at least in their vehicle. These are basically power supplies that you can utilize to jump start your vehicle, which is very beneficial. But typically, they have power sources for USB ports as well as even AC, DC adapters. And the reason I'm a big fan of these is because even in a situation where your car is running, you don't need this, you can hook this up, charge it up, and then you have a way to charge battery power on the move. You can carry these. They're not excessively heavy, but you can carry them short distances. You can utilize these in the house. You can utilize these if your vehicle breaks down, and that way you have an alternate power source. Now, this is a small device and it's not going to last very long. I've run laptops off of this for a few hours before. But what I want to go to next is let's go here and take a look at some big generators, some battery backups that are going to be useful for a little bit longer term situation. So there's two different kinds of generator slash battery backups that I want to talk about. The first one is a gasoline powered generator. Here's the pros of it. They're very powerful. They're run for an extended period of time. They do require, here's the problems. It does require that you have gasoline to be able to run them. Some of them run on diesel, but most of them will run on regular gasoline. So you'll have to have that supply available as well. Because they run on gasoline, they're going to put off emissions that you cannot breathe. So you cannot utilize this inside your home. I would not utilize this inside a garage. This is something, if you're going to use it to power any sort of power in your house, then you're going to have to run this outside your home. That's not a problem if you don't mind bringing attention to yourself. But in large scale disaster, what we've determined is that running a power source such as this brings a lot of attention to that house. So be aware for security as it relates to that. Now let's go in the house. I'll take a look at another one that I have, and you can determine which one's best for your needs. Now this next one is a beast. This thing is very heavy. And we leave it right here in our home so that it's constantly, as you can see, this green light is on, has input. It's constantly being charged, and it's real easy to use. You just unplug it, hit power, and then you're going to have battery power. There's no motor here. There's no noise. The other beautiful part about this is we bought two big solar cells that you plug in that can also charge this up. So you can utilize the sun's rays to actually charge this particular battery back up. Now, with that said, here's some things to keep in mind. If you have somebody in your home that's going to need life-saving medicine, let's say, for example, you have somebody that's insulin dependent and they require insulin to live, then you can get something such as a dorm refrigerator or a very small refrigerator, and you can run that refrigerator for pretty well lengthy period of time, particularly if you're continuing to charge this with solar power for several days. So in the short term, that's a pretty good solution. Keep in mind, when the power goes off, you're going to be able to keep what's in the refrigerator cool for several days anyway before you have to plug anything to it. So the thing to do is to have some sort of battery backup like this, or an electric generator like we showed you before, to run some sort of small refrigerator or whatever power needs that you might have, whether it's a medical device that somebody needs to stay alive. That way you have this available to you, and you can keep them alive just with battery or gasoline backup. Now this should go without saying, but fire alarms are invaluable. When I say fire alarms, if you have those that are attached to the electric system, then you definitely want to have those that have battery backup as well. And here's the big thing about fire. If there's a fire in your home, everybody in your home needs to know how to get outside. That includes your small children. If you're going to go get them, you should have them in a portion of your home where you can get to them no matter where the fire is, meaning you should have them close to you. When and if they get out of the house on their own, you need to have a meeting spot. So let's go outside and talk about that. Hey, so as far as getting your family out of the house, once they're out of the house, they need to have a central location that they know and you know everybody's going to go to. So when they exit the house, my recommendation is you have a friendly neighbor. The way you get a friendly neighbor is you're a friendly neighbor. So find that neighbor that you know that you get along with and tell your family, hey, that's where we're going to meet in the midst of danger. We're going to go to their front yard or their backyard or wherever. That way, everybody knows where to meet. And if somebody doesn't show up, you know that something needs to be done. You can tell first responders, you can take care of the situation as best as you can. And at the same time, when first responders show up, you're out of their way. They can get to work and do what they need to do. So with that said, this has been lesson five of Vital Survival. Come on, join in. Let's learn together.